Okay, we are live. Here we are. It's filming this way, not that way. Okay, does it have me?
Yeah, you're right there.
Okay, I'm right in the center. Very good. Okay, everyone. Chaim, this be Aliyas Neshama, Los Chus, our dear Rabbi Reb Shimon Ben Rav Menachem Shmuel David Halevi Reichik. Los Chus is Neshama. Tonight is the night of Shloshim. The Rambam's yard site, Shloshim for Rabbi Reichik. Tonight is the Rambam's yard site. One of the Geshmaka scenes that we always see in Levi Yitzchak for all these years is Rabbi Reichik teaching the Rambam, rain and shine, all these years between Mincha and Ma'ariv. So, it was an inspiration because I struggled with Rambam. It took me a very long time to be able to learn Rambam. Now, Baruch Hashem, I've been doing it in the last couple of years, but it was the hardest thing for me to break into. Was learning Rambam, and watching Rabbi Reichik doing it every day was
kind of.
was very inspiring. L'chaim. Maybe that would dance a little bit for us. Yeah. There you go. Shkoyach, David. L'chaim. Yeah. So one of the interesting things about this sikha that we're going to be learning, I get Navi. So one of the interesting things about the sikha that we're going to be learning, it's a powerful sikha. Now this is part, now just to make everybody aware, there's a massive program going on now called Tutals, in which the Moshiach office of America's 302 is producing an amazing material during, not this sikha.
No, let's say we did the
summer version.
We did.
That's a 5 month.
Now there is really a 6 months, including the sikha from Chayasaras when it started as a preparation for the Kinnis HaShluchim. They did Chayasara Nun Beis. Then a month ago, they did Vayigash, the sikha from, not Vayigash, Vayeshev Nun Beis. And the JLI is working on it. Yeah, it was inspired. Yeah, it's a very, yeah.
Could never kill my nephews were involved.
It's gewaldig. No, this is not the JLI. It's not the JLI Mashiach course. But JLI is also writing for this. In other words, JLI is also writing to help take these sikhs and bring them down. The people should be able to learn them and understand them. So now is the third one in the series. It's called Transcend, and it's Parsha Shemois that the Rebbe said in the base. This is such an invigorating, life-giving sikha. It's just unbelievable. I'm not just saying it because I love Nun Beis, but this is like from the Nun Beis sikhas. It's like, wow, it's just literally, it's an uplifting sikha that is so powerful. And it explains everything, and explains us primarily what does it mean a Nasi, what does it mean a Rebbe. And the Nekuda of a Rebbe, Moshe Rabbeinu, is talking about, it's really talking about Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah. It's talking about Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah. The Rebbe is lumping all the great leaders of the Jewish people and revealing. Yeah.
That's my granddaughter.
The
Format.
The Rebbe reveals the essence of a Jewish leader. And how the Nakud of a Jewish leader is to bring the Geula into the Galus. That no matter which point a Yid finds himself in the darkest period, through the long, seemingly endless exile, no matter which point a Jew finds himself in, a Yid can connect to the Geula, to redemption. And the Rebbe is explaining over here that it comes from two incredible power points of redemption. One is the Geula of Mitzrayim, and the other one is the Geula of Moshiach. These are points, one from the past, one from the future. And the Nekuda of a Nasi, of a Rebbe, is to capture these 2 points and zoom in to them in such a way that these 2 points become such a vivid, powerful factor that we can all kind of like just tap into that energy and ride the wave of Geula through the entire Golus. No matter where we are standing in Golus, we can be riding the wave of Geula. And as much as that's true in the past, so even in the darkest moments in Golus, the Rebbe explains in this Sikha how, especially in nowadays, that we're holding mamish at the end of the Golus, we have the ability already today, the words of the Rebbe, the Chiddush Nifra, Lahavi Liyamoisa Mashiach, which the Rebbe translated. It's the first translation that we learned a couple of months ago. In after Chav Ches Nisan, the Rebbe was busy with Lahavi Liyamoisa Mashiach, Kol Yemei Chayacha Lahavi Liyamoisa Mashiach, all the days of your life. To bring to the days of Mashiach, the Rebbe learns a Chiddush Pirush over there, that all your days of your life, what should be your business? What should you be obsessed with? What should be your occupancy? What should be you be completely driven? Your drive should be Lahavli Ma'aseh Mashiach. That's the Pirush. And that goes back, and that's an old word. But the Rebbe was driving it very strongly that has to be in right after the Chav Ches Nisan Sikha, where the Rebbe told us that it's our job to bring the Geula. The Rebbe was driving it in this Indian of Kol Yemecha Yachal Lahavi L'Ma'aseh Mashiach. But here in this Sikha, the Rebbe is Megala a much deeper Nekuda. Lahavi L'Ma'aseh Mashiach doesn't mean that you are driven to bring the Geula, but Lahavi L'Ma'aseh Mashiach into now. In other words, Kol Yemecha Yachal Yid has the koyach to take the future, which is Yemoisa Mashiach, Lahavi, and to bring it in, to download Mashiach already during the time of Golus. That he went and he currently, in his area was Mashiach. So the Rebbe is telling us that that's the Nekuda of a Nasi, of a true leader of the Jewish people, to redeem the Jewish people. The Rebbe learns, and tonight's the Rambam's Yortzeit, the end of the Sikha, the Rebbe says that the Rambam was one of these leaders who brought Geula to the Jewish people. And the Rebbe explains how, by even writing Sifrei for Mishnah Torah, the Rambam is, we'll see soon later, that the Rambam is bringing Geula to Jews. And not only is the Rambam bringing Geula to Yidden, but the Rambam is bringing Yemoisa Mashiach to Yidden. By the Rambam putting the two prakim of Hilchas Ala Mashiach, about Hilchas Malachim, about Mashiach, the Rambam was feeding the Jewish people in Golus. He was feeding them Geula. He was giving them Geula. That's the So that's the Nekuda. The Rambam Bechlal in the Sefer gives us all the halachas of Yemoisa Mashiach, Karbanis and so on. So if a Yid really learns.
Why Rambam, not Shulchan Aruch?
Yeah.
Shulchan Aruch doesn't give you.
Shulchan Aruch is more a little bit more of a Gola Sefer.
Yes.
Rambam is
only way you can do that.
Any case, so let's learn. We'll learn it inside this time. The Eilush Ma'is B'nai Yisrael Abba Mitzrayim Shtei Medrash. So on the pasuk, the Eilush Ma'is B'nai Yisrael says in the Medrash, Al Shem Geulas Yisrael Niskaru Kam. The Medrash says that all the names that are mentioned in the beginning of Shemois, of the names of the B'nai Yisrael, the content of these names are representing the Geula of the Yidden. And the Medrash says, Nach Masbir, V'yed Hashem for the B'nai Yisrael, the Yud Beishvat is verbunden mit the Geula. The Medrash then explains how every name that is mentioned, the Medrash darshans the name to relate and to convey a message of Geula. So even though we're talking about the Jews taking their first footsteps into exile, the real content of calling them by their name, of the energy of their name, what they were all about, is not Golus, but Geula. So, and later we're going to see some of the names. For example, Yosef Hashem Shenis Yada, that the Eibush is going to take his hand a second time and take the Yidden out of Golus. So Yosef is called Yosef because of the Geula. So the Rebbe asks a simple question. It's a question that immediately arises. In Haboy Mitzrayim, Retzach Bepashtas wegen the Yerida von Eden and Golus Mitzrayim. What's Haboy Mitzrayim? You're opening it. You're starting the first pasuk of the narrative of Yidden beginning the Golus. Shein Haksta Mashiach. Give Geula, give the Golus a little bit of a chance. That's the question. The story over here is, and you got to be kidding. Be real. The pasuk is describing the Yerida in Mitzrayim. If you're talking about the phase of the Yerida, why are you talking and saying that it means, how could the Medrash, that's what the Rebbe said, how can the Medrash darshan the names which are discussed? It's almost like we're sitting Shiva over here, and you're talking about Chasana. It's pasnish, it's not fitting. Wie es wird erzählt in Hemshech HaKsibim v'Parshis. And Eshtaribu Zman la'achrei, a long time afterwards, talking about a long duration afterwards, is given the Geula in Mitzrayim. Then was the Geula Mitzrayim. Wie es retzich nicht in Parsha, nicht in Parsha Shel Achrei. Now the Geula Mitzrayim is not even a Parsha Shemois. the actual Geula. It doesn't even happen in Parshas Ve'era, because in the end of Parshas Ve'era, Paro is still Chpadati as Liba, he's still Kshay Lev, he's not letting the Jewish people out. Nor Be'emtza, Parsha in 2.5 Parshas, and Parshas Boy, that's when you're going to have the Geula. These Zokter Medrash, as Hashem Geulas Yisrael, Niskeru Kan, that over here, when they're mentioning their names, they're mentioning Hashem Geulas Yisrael. Because das is Punkt Verkehrt von Abba Mitzrayim. Not only is it a different Indian, it's the antithesis to the idea of Abba Mitzrayim when dark clouds are coming upon the Jewish people. So that the Medrash has to be emes. And our zweite Medrash. Now, the Rebbe says, let's compare this to a different Medrash. There's a different Medrash which also talks about Geula in these psukim, but that's much softer, and therefore you can tolerate it. You can tolerate such hopefulness. There's a certain hope that we're already hoping for the Geula. By hearing their names, we kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, because it's discussing how the schus that the Yidden had, that they went out of Mitzrayim. What's the schus that the Yidden had of Mitzrayim? They didn't change their names. So the Medrash says, Reuven, Shimon, Nachsin. Reuven, Shimon went down, and when they went out, it wasn't Jack and whatever. It was the same Reuven and Shimon that went out. They maintained the Jewish names throughout their entire goals. So that's the Indian of the Eila Shemais B'nai Yisrael. The Eila, and this remained their names all along. The Rebbe says that we can tolerate. Why can we tolerate? Because that's still talking about a Yerida. It's a ghost. Now, one, there is a certain schus that they are not going to be crushed in the exile, and they're going to make it out alive in the other end, and they can be able to come out. This is merit. This is schus. No, the Rebbe says that we can have. But to say that they're now called Al Shema Geula itself, that's pushing it already. That's the question. And that's right, the Medrash state, as the Geula in Mitzrayim is given, B'shvil Shaloi Shinu Hashemam. They didn't change their name. Reuven, Shimon, Nachsin. It was Reuven, Shimon that went down. Reuven, Shimon, Salkin. Reuven, Shimon went up. Was Apize can sagen, as in the Eila Shmois B'nai Yisrael Abba Mitzrayim is Bad Gosha Oich der Schus zu libzeliche Yidden seine Nigelvar from Mitzrayim. The Eila Shmois B'nai Yisrael is teaching you a merit. Shaloi Shinu Hashemam. In das ist kein Stiere nicht to the Pirish HaPashat and Haboy Mitzrayim. Over there, you're not, clashing with the word Haboy Mitzrayim. The Yeride in Goldus. Weil da ist nur a Remez. Oifen Tam, for was Yidden sind der noch Nigelvar. Why did they later come out of Mitzrayim? They went out of Mitzrayim because they maintained their names. So there's a Remez already for the future redemption. As b'meshach HaGoldus, on Heimendig fin Tchilas. Now why do you have to say it now? Because that's the whole Nakuda. That they never lost sight or they never disconnected from their Jewish identity. Their identity was always as Yid. They never became Egyptian. Then it says, we know the Yidden fell into all kinds of perverted ways when they were in Mitzrayim. But there's always a question, what's your identity? Wer bist du? Who are you as a human, as a person? How do you view yourself, your etzem? You know you're a Jew. That they never stopped. And that was their schus. So this is not a question. But according to the first medrash, Hanel kommt ois, nicht bloß, as b'shvil ve'ela shemois b'nei Yisrael kum de Geula, not only that because ve'ela shemois b'nei Yisrael, there will be a later Geula, but the medrash says, al shem Geulasan shal Yisrael nikru kan. They're called over here, their names now is symbolizing Geula. In other words, if you had to give somebody a name, what would be the name as they're marching down to Mitzrayim? What name are they giving to their children? Not a name that's conveying oi, not a krechts, but a song of a simcha of the Geula. Kum the Geula, Meshach Zman La'achar, it's 210 shonim. You have 200. You're talking about Haboy Mitzrayim. It says 210 years later, where there's going to be Geula. No, Nachmed, the Shemus Atzmon Niskeru Kan Al Shem Gulas Yisrael. The names themselves. Let's say, as ve'ele Shemois B'nei Yisrael Ba Mitzrayim Ba'vaisen Oif the Geula. These names indicate redemption. So this is l'choyde b'stid. It's a pashtus in Yifan Ba Mitzrayim. The different goals. This is a. So what we're going to see in this sikha. Now, what the Rebbe does is the real Indian of the power of the Nasi and the power of the people who are responsible for the Geula is to uproot the Golus, that there's no Golus even from Milchatchila. That's what the Rebbe does. Like, always in all the Sikhs that the Rebbe talks about Tisha B'Av and 3 weeks. The Rebbe is mahapich the Golus with the roots. He's oikim hadav l'mafreya and reveals how it never is Golus. That's how you turn it over. Also, we need to understand that they are mentioned over here because of the Geula is afil oy megefin tabir vi abba Mitzrayim is verbunden mit Gulas Yisrael. So even if you'll find an explanation how it's connected to Gulas Yisrael, darf man erst maz bode for was der pasuk is da madgish da rat man doch it's the wegen der Yeridim Mitzrayim. Even if you're going to find an explanation of how you can say that Habayim Mitzrayim, which is talking about the onset of exile, really has within it an Indian of Geula. Even if you're going to, the question is, however, and you can see it in the pasuk, but the question is, why would the pasuk be emphasizing it here? Why was that important to emphasize here? This is l'chura, not the story of the redemption. This is the story of the exile. Now, the first question is, it doesn't. The medrash seems out of place. The medrash doesn't seem to be connecting to the energy of the pasuk. That's the first question. The pasuk Habayim Mitzrayim is a morbid story. It's a sad, gloomy story. The medrash is coming suddenly and is dancing with the story of Geula. So you're mishing Hoydam et Kush. It doesn't belong. That's the first question. Second question: even if you're going to dig out and find how it's merumiz and Habayim Mitzrayim, and you're going to find an entryway where the medrash was able to find the Geula element in this dark story. The question then is, why is the Torah Taka putting that story of Geula in the story of Golas when the Geula is not now, the Geula is later? That's the question. I mean, obviously, the Rebbe trained us already so much that the Asa told us not a question. What do you mean? The whole goal is Yerida B'Shvil Aliyah and then the Tzayda Chariya and all that. That's because we've already been. Yeah.
But B'Shvil is one word.
B'Shvil, this is this itself is Geula. That's not a question. Nachman. But now the Rebbe is going to answer the question. He says, which Geula are we talking about? So some of the names that Ataka mentioned are the Medrash emphasizes names which we find that Nekudas happened by Yetzias Mitzrayim. I didn't look in the Medrash now, but the Medrash has a bunch of how Ruvain means Geula, or maybe Ruvain is Ra Ba'ani. I'm not sure exactly what it was. The Eibush the Sol, Vayar Hashem, whatever. So these are psukim that say by Yetzias Mitzrayim. But some of the psukim the Rebbe says is not even by Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's talking about Moshiach, the Geula. So we're talking about the Geula that's going to happen not 210 years later. Talking about something's going to happen 3,500 years later. It's almost fretzich the shayla, and you're talking about before and you're still going to have 5 aliyahs: Mitzrayim, Bavel, Paras Madai, Yavan, and after that, Agolus Edom, which seems to be endless. And yet, you're in the first moment of Habayim Mitzrayim. We're already Al Shem Gula song. We're already dancing the Simchas HaGeula, the Shir HaGeula. Doesn't make any sense. No, Al Shem Gulas Yisrael is Koil Eloich the Gula Sid Alavai. It's also connecting to the Asid Allah, the future Gila. It states, and the Medrash Omer would be the Shachs for Shem Yosef Gula. For example, the connection of Yosef to the Gila, Yosef Hashem Sha'asad HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yosef. The Ligalas Yisrael, the Abish is going to add on and redeem the Jewish people. Memalchus Arisha, from this wicked kingdom. Kishem Shagal Loisam Mitzrayim, just like Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, and will take us out of these Golos. Yosef Havaya Shenis Yadai. That the Eibishter is going to stretch out his hand a second time. The Rebbe always makasha this pasuk to the Frierdiker Rebbe. That's the meaning of the Frierdiker Rebbe's name, Yosef, because this is the Frierdiker Rebbe is the vehicle and he is the instrument. He is the Yosef Havaya Shenis Yadai to bring the Geulah. And the Rebbe learns that it's mamash the Frierdiker Rebbe is that Yosef Havaya Shenis Yadai. And the laughter that comes from it.
But why second? There's been too many. You need more than 2.
What do you mean? No, that means the 2 main Geulas. The other Geulas, yeah. Verti Shaila noch starker. So now the question is stronger. Not only are we taking the moment of going down in Golos, Habayim Mitzrayim, mit Geulas Mitzrayim, with the redemption from Egypt, but we connect it also with the future redemption. Was kimt God a ribu is ma'am la'ach Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's going to come much later after Yetzias Mitzrayim. V'lachas kama v'kama la'ach Yeridim Mitzrayim. It's what? Oh, the Rebbe mentions that later in the Sikh. The Rebbe mentions it. Be'etzem Yetzias Mitzrayim is already the full-fledged Geula, including already for certain inyanim delayed. In other words, the second, the deeper, inner, and more expansive part of it didn't materialize then, even though it's really there. It didn't actualize. But Al Kaponim. So the Rebbe is asking. We're dealing with over here the Geula. Not only even the Geula of Mitzrayim is 210 years later. Here we're talking about not even to talk about the Geula of Mitzrayim, to talk about the Geula of Moshiach is also taking a big leap. Especially when you're starting the Golus Mitzrayim to talk about the Geula Asira. In other words, what kind of connection does it have going down to Mitzrayim? The Yerida fin Yaakov v'chol banav. Yaakov is coming down. And it starts off kind of mellow, 17 years. They're kind of living pretty nicely. Then starts the time when the Vayamas and the Yokam El Chodesh, Ashla Yodas, Yosef, time of forgetfulness. The Chatumi Mitzrayim and Pari Hom Gepravet Hovenes Chakma, and Pari thought that he's going to start commanding over there. He's going to start making trouble, and he's trying to limit the birth of the Jewish people. Biz Yidden Hebenom Golus Mitzrayim, and then finally the real Golus, the real darkness of the Golus. So what kind of shaykhis does this have with the Geula Asida Lava with the future redemption? So what the Rebbe is going to do in the Sikha is the Rebbe is going to take all of time and space, and he's going to rise above it, and he's going to take it all. Like sometimes you're sitting in traffic, you're sitting in traffic and skate, so you get impatient. What do? To make yourself feel a little better, you hit on the GPS, you zoom out. So when you zoom out, you can see that even though it's all red, that the road in front of you is red, but you can see that it's going to open up. And then you can see the B'nekuda from the beginning, you can see the end, you can see the whole journey, and then you get perspective. And this is what this is going to do. The Sikha gives such an enormous perspective, like how you take, and the Rebbe is basically going to create this enormous sandwich of Geula. There's a powerful energy of Geula at the beginning. There's an unbelievable energy in Geula in the middle, at the end, and therefore the content of the in-between is also Geula. It's not Golas. It's only that what Hashem wants is that we should take this explosive, infinite energy and reveal it even in the Meitzara Megavulas of time and space. So therefore, we go through the narrow pipelines so that even in the narrowness, we can uncover the infinity of God. And that's the whole purpose. A Yid is an Inyan of Geula, not an Inyan of Golas. And the Yid carries the Geula into the Golas. That's the Nakud. That's going to be later. But this is still learning. What?
I'm sending it to everybody. So.
Okay. That's everybody. Actually, if you want it to be really real, you can all listen to it on your phones. Dazu darf man euch verstehen. Chassanim and Kalas don't trust that they're engaged until they see it on Instagram. When they see it there, then they know it's for real. Dazu darf man euch verstehen. For this, we also need to understand. We need to understand how this. What's the question? Was is der Fund der Limud der Nara Itzte? What do we learn out from this today? What does it mean today? Thousands of years after Abba Mitzrayim. And La'achre Yitzias Mitzrayim. What does this teach us about our life and our attitude in life? How are we supposed to live? The main Nekuda of explanation. Der ganze Inyan von Abba Mitzrayim. This is classical Rebbe. That what? The ganze Inyan of Abba Mitzrayim is an emerson Geulas Yisrael. Again, the Rebbe is saying the whole Golus is not Golus, it's Geula. That's what it is. That the whole Inyan, an emes, in other words, notwithstanding all the misery, pain, expulsions, and suffering, and all that the Jewish people have gone through, and all the Inyanim. But that does not take away that the Pnimius, the Nakuda, inner point of it all, is not that. It's Geula of Yisrael. In das was bin Tayim is da Yerida, and this that in between the beginning, the pre-Golus, which was when Yaakov and his children were living in Eretz Yisrael, or in between the first Geula, Yetzias Mitzrayim, and the last and the final Geula, in between them, there's a lot of dark moments. The Rebbe says is the Spichitzainis. Doesn't change the essence of what it really is. It's external. Aber bepnimius is the Yerida Gufa, nicht nur, and here's what you were saying, Abi, nicht nur bishvil val menasalia. It's not only that we have to look at the Golus as what? As Yerida, and that it is Yerida. Now we're falling. That we know that one day it will lead to an Aliyah. The Rebbe is saying no. Bepnimius, when this is Aliyah itself. Nishnar b'shvil v'amanas aliyah shebegulas Mitzrayim. It's not only for the sake of the elevation. No nochmer achelik funder aliyah v'gula atzma. It's actually a part of the aliyah itself, a part of the elevation. Biz, and not only, and which aliyah? Which aliyah is it part of? The Habar Mitzrayim of 4,000 years ago was not only a beginning of the Aliyah of Yetzias Mitzrayim, but it was actually part of the Aliyah of the coming of Mashiach. The Aliyah from the Geula Amitis Vashleima. Now the Alter Rebbe really says this Nakuda. The Alter Rebbe says when the Eibishter says when the Eibishter said to Yaakov Avinu, "Va'anoichi elcha gam oloi," what's the lashon? "Va'anoichi elcha gam oloi." So he's talking to him about Yetzias Mitzrayim, but he's telling him that elcha is talking about you're coming out of Golus Mitzrayim. Gam oloi is talking about the Geula Amitis Vashleima, and that's both nichlal and there. Yeah, what's the double lashon? It's two stages in that. But that means that, and since the Rebbe is learning that it's not anoichi, that's a new phase. There's anoichi eire, and that's a yerida, and then you can have aliyah. And then aliyah, there's two stages. No. That the anoichi is the same anoichi leading you to the elcha gam oloi, and it's going through. And I guess the only way you can get to elcha gam oloi, to this ultimate great elevation, is through the path of anoichi eire. We're going to go down temporarily in the Rebbe Zakter Medrash of the Eile Shmois Bnei Yisrael Aboy Mitzrayim. That's why, being that the Medrash has the eyes, so the Medrash is able to see things clearly. So the Medrash tells us that don't get phased by Habar Mitzrayim. Know that take a deep breath and know that Habar Mitzrayim, what is it really? It's Hashem Geulas Shel Yisrael. Hashem Geulas Yisrael Niskru Kan gemeint euch die Geula Asid Alami. Now, for this you have to have very special eyes. And I'm going to share with you something from the end of the Sikha, which I think is just so powerful. The Rebbe is going to reveal how this Nakuda of being able to, no matter how dark it is, no matter to be able to see and to touch the Geula, it's the idea of a real Rebbe, the idea of a Nasi Shel Yisrael. That's his job. So the Rebbe is going to learn that this is the Indian of Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, when Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah said, "Maskidim Yetzias Mitzrayim ba'leilas." And the Rebbe is going to explain why did Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah say that the day he became a Nasi. Because that's his main Indian as a Nasi. He was being oisik. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was being oisik in you're supposed to learn always in Yanim Shazman Garama. On Yom Tov, you're supposed to make preference to learn the laws of Sukkot, on Matzah, on Pesach, and so on and so forth. So what is a Nasi, the day that he becomes Nasi, being oisik? In the Inyan of Nasias. And since the main Inyan of a Nasi is to throw a lifeline of Geula to every person, so therefore he is connecting Yetzias Mitzrayim, and he's throwing that Baleilois, no matter how dark it is, where a Yid is going to be, you get a lifeline thrown to you from Elazar ben Azariah, who's the Nasi, and he's giving you to hold on to the Geula. But he says an amazing thing, that when did Elazar ben Azariah able to do that? Ben Shivim Shana, when he was 70 years old. Why? Because as long as you have darkness within your own being, if you're not pure, you're not thoroughly divine and godly, there is a certain space within you where there's still a blockage of godliness, then when you look in the world, you'll also see God. The only way to be able to have ayin, the Rebbe learns the 70, is also the big eye. To have the eyes of a Nasi, the eyes of a tzaddik, the eyes to see Moshiach and Geula, is if there isn't any speck of darkness in you. So once Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah completed his 70 years of purification, so there was, even though he did it quickly, he did it when he was only 18 years old, he already had finished all the bitter, and therefore he had crystal vision, and he was able to so the Rebbe in this Sikha is sharing with us that eye. And it's interesting how this last year, Yud Shvat, was 70 years of the Rebbe's Nasiya. So this thing is so powerful now. In any case, but that's the Nakud, to be able to see in Habar Mitzrayim, not to feel Golos, but to feel only Gilur. In Vibaltas Alen Yonim for Habar Mitzrayim, and since all the Yonim of Habar Mitzrayim, in Geulas Mitzrayim, Vere Nimshach Oich La'achrizeh. Now, since Mitzrayim and the whole experience of Mitzrayim and Yetzias Mitzrayim is all a Pa'ula Nimshachas. As we know in Chassidus, whenever we talk about Mitzrayim, we're not talking about an old story of Jews being in a geographical location. We're talking about a vivid reality in all of us, that we have Mitzrayim. We have certain limitations and boundaries, constrictions and blockages. That's our Mitzrayim. And Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Alter Rebbe explains how every day when a Yid picks himself up and he knows that Mitzad the Eibishter, Mitzad the Chelik Elokayim Emal that he has in him, he's not bounded and limited by anything. And he stands above it all. So going out of Mitzrayim is B'chol Yom V'Yom. Therefore, the Rebbe says, since Mitzrayim and Geulas Mitzrayim is an Inyan that's nimshach all the time, so therefore, this is our Kamaimar Chazal, Kol HaMalchius Nikra Hashem Mitzrayim. That the Mitzrayim, all the Malchios, which means all the Golios, that Jews are under subjugation of any foreign power until Mashiach comes, is all called Hashem Mitzrayim. So two things. The Rebbe shows you how Golus Mitzrayim continues to a certain degree, and how Yetzias Mitzrayim continues. Why? Because Maskirin Yetzias Mitzrayim B'chol Yom we mentioned, and in Maskirin Yetzias Mitzrayim, as Chassidus teaches, is not just a memory; it's to live it, to live Yetzias Mitzrayim every day. B'chol Dor v'Dor, B'chol Yom v'Yom Chayav Adam Liris Etzatzmi Kihilu Yotza Hayoim Mitzrayim. That every person has to view himself as he's gone out today of Egypt. So this is teaching you. As oichen dem itzdik in Golus. So even when we're in our current exile, we have to draw down. In other words, we have to uncover, just like the Shvatim at that moment, when they were going into Mitzrayim, they saw the premise of it, and that's why Al Shem Gulasam Shal Yisrael, they were not fazed by the darkness. Adarabah, they were able to turn it inside out. And in the Haboim Mitzrayim, they were able to go with a song by knowing that this is really Geulah. So that's the Nesinas Koyach, and that's the Haidah for us today. That even when we're in Golus, in the Golus, we can tap Geulah, we can tap and feel Geulah and live in the Mashiach. The Geulah Amitis Vashleim Lakamon, which will be later explained in the Maimer, how we have that power to continuously live on that Mashiach frequency. And that's verstehen. So we'll understand all of this. Bahagdim dem bir and then let's the Mishnah mepeda kama the brats. So now let's go to the first parak, the end, the first parak in Masechtas Brachos. The Mezakt is oichen the Nusach Haggadah Shel Pesach, and we're familiar with it because we all say it in the Haggadah all the time. Omer Rabbi Elazar ben Azari. So Rabbi Elazar ben Azari says that I am like 70 years old. As we know, he wasn't really 70 years old. He was 18 years old, but because they appointed him to be the Nasi, and he was uncomfortable with his young looks, they would lack the respect. So he got a white beard. So yeah, and together he had his 70s. He had his 70s. But upon him, he looked as if he's 70, and he said, "I am like 70 years old, but I never, notwithstanding my long short life, and therefore, wow, I should have been able to have discovered this earlier, but I wasn't zeich until." As the Rebbe learns, it talks about it in the Mefarshim, until today. Until that day, Ben Zoyma Darshan. What did Ben Zoyma say? What was his problem? He knew that you're supposed to be maskir Yetzias Mitzrayim even by night. He knew that, but he didn't have a smach, he didn't have a pasuk on what to rely on. But when the pasuk says, Laman Tiskar Yasiem Tzitz, one of the Sheish Schiros, we say, you should remember the day you went out of Egypt, Kol Yemei Chayach. So the kol is superfluous. Should have just said Yemei Chayach. The kol. So the kol comes to add even by night. Yemei Chayach Yom Kol Yemei Chalavi Alelos. So the Chachamim argue, and they say, or there's a shaila if it's an argument. The Rebbe discusses it a lot. Could be it's just an addition. Like Yemei Chayach Olam Hazeh. That when it says the days of your life, it's referring to this world. Kol Yemei Chayach Lahavdi Moisei Mashiach. Okay. Zokt Rashi. So Rashi says, Keden Shivim Shana. When it says he was like 70 years old, I look old, but I'm not old. Shabbos of Seva, aging came upon him. It was the day that Rabbi Gamliel was demoted. It was he was a little disrespectful to Rabbi Yeshua. So the Chachamim felt that they took him off from his position, and they were man Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Nasi. These are the common Perek Tfilas HaShachar. Let's explain in the further in the Perek. So Rashi Taka learns it was on that day. That the Benzoim, not that he says telling you about something that he heard of like a few years ago. No, Acha Darsha Benzoim means that day. Then on that, I guess it implies because Arei Anika Ben Shirim Shana till now. And now finally, Benzoim was the one who came up with this chiddush. The Torah Bir, we need explanation. And them shaykhs from the Maimer mitten Bala Maimer. What's the shaykhs from this Maimer, from Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, with the Bala Maimer, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah? Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Number one, what's the chalal the shaykhs with him, with Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah? So the Rebbe is going to explain the shaykhs is, we're going to see soon, because he's the Nasi. And once the Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is the Nasi, His business is to be able to bring Yitzias Mitzrayim to every year. What is that Rebbe? Was it the Nekudah from that Rebbe? I'll show you what that Rebbe is. But the Rebbe is here to help a Yid. Like the Rebbe said, my name is Ufhed. To help a Yid, no matter what. It's a beautiful story I saw this week, even I wasn't with the story with Beryl Baumgarten. When Beryl Baumgarten was in Brazil, and he was crossing over in a ferry, and he was going from Argentina to Brazil. He was in a ferry, and on the ferry, suddenly the ferry was hit by he was in his car. The car would go onto the ferry, and he was in it. The ferry was hit by a big boat carrying bananas, out of all things. And it knocked into the thing, and the whole row of cars, whatever, his car flew right off the thing. And as he was sinking, he was trying as hard as he can. But what happened was, this is the way I read the story. I would have to do a confirmation of it. I read the story yesterday. He before, as he was waiting to get onto the thing, he suddenly felt very lonely. This is still in the Yuds, even before the Chag. This is in 1950, sometime the end of the 50s. He suddenly felt very isolated and scared, and like something became very uncomfortable. And he decided that he needs to reach out to the Rebbe. So he went to, by the port, there was a post, some kind of and he sent a telegram. He sent a telegram, and he asked the Rebbe, to please think about it. That was the mice. He asked the Rebbe to think about it. And then, as he was drowning, he was going down. He was trying to push as hard as he can to get out of the thing, and the water pressure was just. He thought he's over. He started saying Vida. Now, at that very same time, the Rebbe was sitting by Fabrengen. I think it was Yud Beis Tammuz. It was Matzah Yud Beis Tammuz, and the Rebbe was by Fabrengen. And the Rebbe started talking about the Inyan that if you're too gebunden oivin, you don't fall below. And if you're mekusher with a nasi, if you're mekusher above, you don't fall. And even when the chas v'shalom, and the Rebbe said, like you find that people who go down mining, they have to tie themselves to somebody on the top, and only when you tie yourself someone on the top can you go down very low and not be harmed. And then the Rebbe went into the Rebbe was deeply vertracht. The Rebbe was deeply vertracht in a deep, and the Rebbe continued saying something about, I forgot already. What exactly the Rebbe concluded with something. Any case, he suddenly felt like there was someone like gave him a yank, and the door was pushed open. And he was able to come out, and as he was pushing and pushing, trying to swim up, and somehow he felt like some kind of an assistance, and he managed to come out to the other side. So later, when he came into Yechidus, the Rebbe said to him, "Nu, getracht wegen dir, oder nicht getracht wegen dir?" Something like that. The Rebbe asked, "Thought about you, or didn't think about you?" So that's the song that we sing, Rebbe Rateve, that literally happened in his situation. And that expresses the idea. I mean, the story is a Geschmacka story in terms of the physical waters, but each and every one of us find ourselves many times drowning in waters, whatever the Mayim Rabbim could be of life. And that's an inyan of a Rebbe, to always be there, to always stretch out the hand and pick us up. But not only in terms of our own little mitzvah and megvulas, but in every element and regarding generality of Golus itself. The inyan of a Rebbe is to live. So that's the inyan of the Nasi. And that's why Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, that I was going to explain, was busy learning that day, and he was becoming a Nasi. He had to know his responsibility. I'm thinking that even though Ben Zaymer was the one who said it, but the Nasi is the one who brings all Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Wi-Fi that, Bluetooth that to Ben Zaymer. What do you think? It was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah's Indian, but he gave it to Ben Zaymer to say the Chiddush. Ben Zaymer came up with the Chiddush. The famous story with the Tzemach Tzedek. This is like a story. The Tzemach Tzedek was with Rabbi Itzhak Volozhiner. They were in Russia, and they were doing at that time. There was all kinds of criticism for whatever. One of the things was the guy came out and they presented them that it says in Gemara Toiv. Goyim, the best of the Goyim, Harog. The best of it, you should kill him. Yeah. So they asked him the question, and the Tzemach they asked the Tzemach Tzedek the question, and the Tzemach Tzedek said, ask Rabbi Itzhak. They should ask him, Rabbi Itzhak Volozhiner. They should ask him the question. So they asked him. And he said that really it was a mistake. It was really written Toiv Shebegoyim K'toil. Now K'toil, some people, K'toil means kill. It's in Arabic. It's in Aramaic, K'toil, which is really Arabic. And they changed it, they wrote Heroic. But really it's K'toil. And what it really means is Toiv Shebegoyim. K'toil means Catholics. The Catholics are the Toiv Shebegoyim. In Russia, they were not Catholics. Okay, but it's okay. It's a chelik of that. Anyways, so they liked the answer.
How does that fit into the?
But they were the originals, no?
Yeah.
The original. So wait. So he gave him this answer. And later they went and they looked up a medrash. They looked up an old girsa, and they were able to find in the thing that it said takazah. Anyways, when they left, Rabbi Itzik Volodina sent to the Tzemach Tzedek. He says, "What you do? How'd you put me in on the spot like that?" And he says, "And I know that it was your answer. This didn't come from me." The Tzemach Tzedek didn't want to say something that wasn't true from his mouth. It wasn't emes. The real girsa was always Teif Shel Goren. The Tzemach didn't want to say it, so he had it. He gave it over to him, and he beamed him this. He said himself that he would have never came up with that. And Tzemach said, "Ask him." And so, but anyways, Rabbi Loza ben Azariah, and the Rebbe is going to learn it in the words of Rabbi Loza ben Azariah itself. That the toichen of Elazar is keil. Hear the word. Elazar is keil oizer. What is the inyan of a Rebbe? Keil oizer, the Eberster that helps. No matter which situation you are, keil oizer. What's Azariah? Ezer Yudke. Ezer assistance that comes from Yudke. Both Yudke and keil, the Rebbe learns in the Sikha, is the Oirein Soif, higher than goals. It's what a Rebbe and a Nasi is above the whole union of goals. And he can channel from Kael and from Yudke the highest lights and channel it and reach and give it to every single Jew, no matter where you are. And that's a Nasi. And that's what the Shaykhs to Loza ben Azariah to be able to do this. Okay, but let's see inside. Number one was the Shaykhs of Rabbi Loza ben Azariah. In the Shaykhs, was the Mishnah's gesagt geworden, B'yoim, or the Bekeshem mit dem Yoim. Why was it on the day that he became Nasi? The Mestabra Loina, as we bald Rebbe Loza ben Azariah sich oisik gewen in dem Sugi and Toyd in the Tog when it is geworden Nasi. Since Rebbe Loza ben Azariah was oisik in this subject on the day that he became Nasi, it does from Bunden mit seiner Avoida als Nasi be Yisrael. It's connected with this Avoida as a Nasi be Yisrael. Al derech, why? Al derech techiv akdimu b'limud ha'Toyd binyanim shazman geram. And we said earlier that when there's a certain Yom Tov, you're supposed to learn the inyanim of that Yom Tov. So if he's becoming Nasi on that day, it makes sense that he was Isaac in those inyanim. V'yesh leim and al derech says when the gates a yed and yid. Regard is also every yid. Ubefrat bekeshem et zayin limud ha'Toyd and the inyanim shazman geram shalai. No, it's just like it is regarding to events that apply to all Jews together, like seasons. Tomorrow we have to be Isaac in the inyan of Nittel. Someone was asking, what's the mucker from Nittel? Someone told me that they asked the Gerer Rebbe, the Leiv Simcha, that everything, every sadness and every negativity, they said is merumas and echal. They said, where is Nittel? They opened up and he said, Yeshev badad v'yidaim ki notal olav. And that's Nittel, Yeshev badad v'yidaim. It's the lanes, ki notal olav, because it's Nittel. So in any case, so you have to be Isaac in an Inyan Shazman Gerama. That's pace. But the Rebbe says every Jew, when you're in a certain situation, you're supposed to learn that Inyan and Torah. So if you were promoted to be a Nasi, you have to learn that Inyan. So therefore, you have to say that somehow this Mishnah, the Rebbe says, is related to Rebbe Loza ben Azariah becoming a Nasi. We also have to understand what it has to do with this idea, with this introduction that I am like 70 years old. Shivim Shana Daifka. What does it have to do with 7? We learned already the answer before. Only when he reaches that purity of 70 does he have himself that eye, and from that place is he able to throw that Geula lifeline to every single year. And that's his job as a Nasi. That's why he was learning it on the day that he became Nasi. Well, be it Indian. Let's quickly learn the beer. In their Mishnah, der Goydele Ili v'Shvach Yetzias Mitzrayim. In this Mishnah, it expresses the whole Indian of Yetzias Mitzrayim. This Mishnah tells us how powerful Yetzias Mitzrayim is. As oich la'achre v'yidin zen ha'roitz from Mitzrayim. Even after we went out of Mitzrayim. Hotman der Chiyaf and Schiras Yetzias Mitzrayim kol yemei chayach. You have to remember this event. You should never forget this event. Sai b'yomim, sai b'leilos, by day and by night. Kedivre ben Zayna, like Ben Zayna says. In sai ba'olam hazeh, and sai li'moisa Mashiach. Kedivre hachachamim, like the words of the hachachamim. In our days and in the future days. What? Yeah. Yemecha Yach, that's the lashon of the.
I know.
Yemecha Yach ha'olam hazeh.
If you look at Olam Hazeh, you're thinking Olam Haba.
Some spiritual existence.
Yeah. It doesn't.
No, you see it in davening also. Ein alech lachashem aken ba'olam hazeh. And vein zelascha Moshe Mashiach. So Moshe Mashiach is considered after Olam. The time of them is, and the reason for that is, Valschiris Yitzis Mitzrayim is a Yesoid Gadol v'Amad Chazig with the Reseinu v'Mesed. The Rebbe first say like this. In this Mishnah, it tells you how powerful Yitzis Mitzrayim is. That it's something that you can never leave go of it. Day, night, now, and forever. Why is that so important? Because it's a Yesoid Chazak. First, the Rebbe uses Rishonim, terminology from the Rishonim, and then the Rebbe goes more into Chassidus, why it's so powerful. Pashat Begashmi is on the most simplest of level. The words of the Rishonim, it's a Yesoid Gadol v'Amad Chazig with the Reseinu v'Mesed. That's from the Chinuch. This was the unlocked, this opened up the power of redemption. As Yidden and Aroitz from them Geder from Avdus in Gavana b'nei Chodim be'etzem. That's the Rebbe's using the Nekuda teaching of the Maharal. The Maharal explains that even, because if we say that God the what, now that we went out of Mitzrayim, he says, no, we're still Mishubadim. So the Maharal explains that after we went out of Mitzrayim, we will never ever be the same level of Mishubadim. Because a Yid be'etzem is a ben chayil, and a Jew does not accept essentially, temporarily, externally, a Jew can be subjugated to something. In essence, a Jew is above it all, and that's what Yetzias Mitzrayim affected us in a very core, essential way. It transformed us at our avodehem v'lo avodim la'avodim. That declaration defines who we are. We are His servants attached to Him, and not servants to servants. And this is for all the eternity. That's in general, as a people. There's no foreign power that really can subjugate the Jewish people. Number one. And personal avodah, on a very personal level. Yetzias Mitzrayim batayit, the Yetziyah and the Nefesh Elokis from Mitzrayim megvulim from the Ma'aser Aguf and Olam Hazeh b'chlal. The body and this world create all kinds of Mitzrayim megvulim, limitations, boundaries. And a Yid is able to go out of that. A Neshama is able to rise above it. Through Torah and Mitzvahs, each and every one of us can lift ourselves up and connect ourselves to the Eibishter. And Vibalta, das is an Indian clothing in ganz Torah in Yiddishkeit, since this is a very general Indian. We have to remember it all the days of our life. It's so important that you have to remember it every day and throughout, no matter every element in life. And over here the Rebbe says, Ubepratis, I'm not going to read it inside, 3 nekudas. What are the 3? In other words, in this Mishnah, it discusses 3 categories of time in which you need to illuminate with Yetzias Mitzrayim. Number 1 is by Yomim. Days. What is Yomim? Days? Is when things are good, things are bright. We're in a good place. Physically, we're in a good place. Baruch Hashem, no tzaras. We're living okay. No problems in our life. We're smooth sailing. And in addition to that, spiritually, there's a lot of illumination. We have shiurim, we have teachers, we have mentors, we have inspiration. We're doing well. We're in a good spiritual state. So then, maskin Yetzias Mitzrayim. The idea of Yetzias Mitzrayim by Yom means that you can never sit back and patchach on the belly and say I'm good. A Yid has to always break out of. Like the Alter Rebbe's Nekuda of Me'apam and Ve'echad, 101, Wild Turkey 101. There's always got to be a break. There's always got to be a break. A Jew's always got to break every situation. That's by Yom. The second situation is Leilos. What's Leilos? When it's dark and difficult. And that can be both through the various darkest persecutions. It also can mean spiritually when we're being persecuted by our Nefesh Bahamas and the Yetzer Hara. When a person feels enslaved and addicted and stuck, and no matter what kind of addictions and stuff like that. So a Yid has to know that that you have a power to lift yourself up and you're never really stuck. That Eibishter is giving you the ability to bond with Him and to pick yourself up at. That's number 2. And then there's the 30. What's the 30? Even extending into Yemosha Mashiach, which Moshiach is going to be a time when we're kind of coming out of every kind of limitation and boundaries. And in a sense, we're going to be then on levels way beyond that we've even been when we've gone out of Mitzrayim. So we would think at that point, we can let go of the event of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So we say, no. The power of Yetzias Mitzrayim is so strong that it's impacting even in a time which the energy is so much greater than Yetzias Mitzrayim. Yet even then, the nucleus of it, as it is explained, is really Yetzias Mitzrayim. So therefore, the power, so obviously this Mishnah is basically speaking, not the Mishnah, the mitzvah of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and which really represents the energy of Yetzias Mitzrayim, is so powerful that literally it is malava a person. It accompanies us in every situation, no matter what, where, and when. It's all embracing of all time. That's the Nikud. That's Yetzias Mitzrayim. As the Rebbe is going to explain, we're going to finish this Be'ez Hashem next week, Tuesday. That it's not only that Yetzias Mitzrayim is so powerful, but as the Rebbe explains, the Nekuda of Maskini Yetzias Mitzrayim, even Yemoisa Mashiach, is in order to create a bridge between Yetzias Mitzrayim and Yemoisa Mashiach. That Yemoisa Mashiach and Yetzias Mitzrayim are connected to each other, and then therefore they become two incredible power points of redemption. And since we can also bring it in Baleilos, we create this incredible triangle. What's the triangle? So what we have is a triangle. What we have a triangle is like this. We have this Managolos, that's the middle point down here. And then we have these two incredible power points over there, which we can stretch our hands out on both sides and pull ourselves up no matter where we are. During the Baleilos, we have both Yetzias Mitzrayim, we have Yemoisa Mashiach, and all of that can be funneled into the Jew while he is Baleilos, while he is by night. And therefore, once you have these two powers, it really then it's going to be, as we're going to see soon, it's going to be Igloy Lamil Salam Afreya, that you're really never going into Golos. That in Aboyim Mitzrayim, you're already connecting to this power. Now, this power of Geula didn't start by only by Yetzias Mitzrayim. It was already there by the others. It was already by Noichi Elcha. The Eibishter told Yaakov Avinu, I'm already with you. I'm already taking you through it. Even though his Galus, it was Nizgala by Yetzias Mitzrayim, but it was there. Yeah. That it will, yeah.
We said the sikhs before this.
Yeah.
The last half a dozen sikhs.
I didn't.
We said that you must be Mashiach when it started.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Ari Nishlav. He's talking over here, Ari Nishlav of
Yeah, but the emes was Shaykhim throughout the whole world. Now on a much stronger level.
That's past tense.
Yes.
Height
is manishim, I think. But still.
You have to remember when the governments are trying to impose on us.
Anybody took the diet? Tomorrow's the last.
I finished mine.
No. Now
Let's go. Chinese food.
Yeah.